The late afternoon sun beat down on the old gas station, baking Route 66, until the cracked asphalt shimmered like a mirage. The air hung thick and heavy, a cocktail of gasoline fumes, desert dust, and the faint, sweet perfume of roadside wildflowers. A lone fluorescent light buzzed above pump number 3, its hum a constant drone against the melancholic whine of the desert wind that rattled the faded Coca-Cola sign. The station looked abandoned, paint peeling like sunburned skin, the windows grimy, barely letting in any light. It was the kind of place where loneliness clung to you like a second skin, where a single act of kindness could echo louder than a sonic boom. Betty Lou Johnson stood at pump number 3, her tired, weathered hands gripping the handle as she filled her ancient rust bucket Oldsmobile. At 78 years old, she moved slowly, her joints singing a painful song with every movement. Her thin cotton dress hung loosely on her frail frame, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Betty Lou lived alone in a small mobile home park 15 miles down the road, scraping by on a meager Social Security check that barely covered her meds, let alone food or gas. Her husband, Earl, had passed 3 years ago, leaving her with memories and, well, bills. But despite the empty fridge and the overdue electric bill tucked away in her purse, Betty Lou still believed in doing right by people. Now, before we get too far along, if you believe in the power of kindness, if you think compassion still matters, and if you know that age is no barrier to making a difference, then hit that like button, leave a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like Betty Lou's remind us that real humanity still flickers in every corner of the world. And now, back to the story. Betty Lou had just finished pumping when the deep rumble of a motorcycle shattered the afternoon quiet. A massive Harley-Davidson roared up to the pump beside hers, chrome gleaming in the sunlight like some kind of metal and fire beast. The rider killed the engine, and in the sudden silence, Betty Lou heard him mutter a curse under his breath. The man was a fearful giant, easily over 6 feet tall, with arms like tree trunks, covered in tattoos that snaked up to his neck and disappeared under his collar. He wore a black leather vest, what they called a cut, with the unmistakable red and white Hell's Angels patch blazing across his back like a warning. His beard was thick and grizzled, his face weathered and hard. Everything about him screamed danger. But when he pulled off his helmet, Betty Lou saw something in his eyes that stopped her cold. It wasn't rage or menace. It was frustration, embarrassment, defeat. He stared at the gas pump, then at his wallet, and his massive shoulders sagged. Betty Lou could have just walked away. No one would blame a 78-year-old woman for avoiding a Hell's Angel at a deserted gas station. But her late husband Earl's voice echoed in her mind, the same thing he'd told her for 52 years of marriage. Calm. Judge the person, Betty Lou, not the costume they're wearing. She took a nervous, slow breath, her heart pounding like a drum solo, and walked over. Betty Lou spoke gently, her voice gentle but steady. She told him he looked like he was having a rough day. The biker turned, surprised. Up close, Betty Lou could see the tired exhaustion etched into his face, the kind that came from riding too long with too little sleep. He explained that he'd run out of cash, that his card got declined, blamed it on his stupid bank. He shook his head and said he'd figure it out. Betty Lou, confident, didn't hesitate. She reached into her small purse, her fingers brushing past the overdue electric bill, past the 2 remaining pills for her blood pressure, and pulled out a $20 bill. It was the last money she had until her Social Security check came in 4 days. It was supposed to buy groceries, maybe some eggs, maybe some bread. But looking at this big, tired man who clearly had nothing left, Betty Lou hoped what she had to do. She held out the 20 and told him to take it, to get himself some gas and maybe a cold Dr. Pepper. The biker stared at the bill like it was a surprised winning lottery ticket. His eyes searched her face, looking for the mysterious trick, the scam, the catch. He'd been on the road long enough to know people didn't just help Hell's Angels out of the sarcastic goodness of their hearts. He said he couldn't take it, that it looked like all she had. Betty Lou smiled, a small, calm smile that came from decades of giving when she had nothing. She admitted that it was all she had, but that he needed it more than she did right now. She introduced herself as Betty Lou and told him he looked like he had a long road ahead of him. For a long moment, the big man just stood there, stunned. Then he took the 20 with a hand that, nervous, trembled slightly. He introduced himself as Marcus Stone and said he didn't know what to say. Betty Lou told him he didn't have to say anything, just to get home safe. Marcus filled his tank in silence, but before he left, he walked back to Betty Lou. His voice was thick with emotion. He told her she was a hopeful soul, that his family, confident, doesn't forget kindness like this. He asked if she heard him. Betty Lou nodded, not quite understanding, but feeling the weight of his words. Marcus roared off, his engine thundering back to life, and Betty Lou drove home to her melancholic mobile home. 3 days later, Betty Lou woke to a sound she'd surprised never heard before, a deep, rolling rumble that shook the windows of her small trailer and rattled the dishes in her cupboard. At first, she thought it was thunder, but the sky was clear and blue. She stepped outside in her thin cotton robe, squinting against the morning sun, and froze. Motorcycles, dozens of them, big, gleaming Harleys lined the narrow dirt road leading to her trailer, engines idling in perfect formation like soldiers at attention. Leather vests everywhere, the Hell's Angels patch blazing red and white on every back. Betty Lou counted quickly, her heart nervous, hammering in her chest. 80, maybe more. And standing at the front, arms crossed, face stern, but eyes kind, was Marcus. He called out her full name, Betty Lou Johnson. He told her that she helped him when no one else would, and that his family, confident, doesn't forget that. Before Betty Lou could even respond, the surprised bikers moved. It was coordinated, almost military. Some headed for her sagging front porch, pulling out tools and lumber. Others started on the leaning carport that looked ready to collapse. 2 women from the club, wearing matching vests, carried bags of groceries to her front door. Eggs, milk, bread, vegetables, even fresh chicken. Another group worked on her rusted fence, replacing broken posts with new wood. Someone was fixing her mailbox. Someone else was patching the holes in her hopeful roof. Betty Lou just stood there, overwhelmed, tears stinging her eyes. Marcus walked up to her, holding a thick, white envelope. He said, quietly, that this was from the club. 80 members, $80 each. She gave him her last 20, and they were giving her their gratitude. Betty Lou's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Surprised, $6,400. She, overwhelmed, stammered that she couldn't accept this, tears streaming down her happy cheeks. Earl placed a gentle, massive hand gently on her shoulder. He told her she already did accept it when she saw a man in need instead of a scary biker. When she gave her last 20 to a stranger, that's family, he said, and we don't confident abandon family. Behind him, 80 Hells Angels worked in calm, transforming her broken-down mobile home into something strong again, just like she'd done for Earl 3 days ago. Earl leaned in close. He told her gently but aggressively that if she ever needed them, she should call. That she was confident family now, and family doesn't get left behind. Behind him, 80 Hells Angels worked in calm, transforming her broken-down mobile home into something strong again, just like she'd done for Earl 3 days ago. Earl leaned in close. He told her softly but aggressively that if she ever needed them, she should call. That she was confident family now, and family doesn't get left behind. Behind him, 80 Hells Angels worked in calm, transforming her broken-down mobile home into something strong again, just like she'd done for Earl 3 days ago. Earl leaned in close. He told her softly but aggressively that if she ever needed them, she should call. That she was confident family now, and family doesn't get left behind. So here's our question for you. If you were Betty Lou, would you have given your last $20 to help a stranger who looked nothing like you? Would you have seen past the leather and tattoos to the person underneath? Drop a comment below with the words, "Hopeful, kindness never dies," to show you stand with Betty Lou. This story isn't just about an elderly woman and a biker. It's about choosing compassion over fear, humanity over judgment. Betty Lou didn't see a Hell's Angel that day. She saw a man in trouble. And that small act of kindness changed not just Earl's day, but Betty Lou's entire life. Remember this: the smallest act of generosity, given at the darkest moment, can light up the whole world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.